In 1948, Allen hired his former player Dick Harp as an assistant coach and told him to cross the state and sign 3 of its best high school players, Bill Hoagland, Bill Linhard, and Bob Kenny.
And Doc told me before I left, he said, now I want you to tell them 2 things. He said, we are going to win the conference championship, but we also are going to win the national championship and go to the Olympics. And I said, oh, you really don't want me to tell them as a truthful statement, do you? And I'd hate to fib the first time we met. And he said, that's what I want to tell you. You know, he didn't particularly even like my saying that, so I said, okay.
Harp delivered the Kansas players, but Allen saved the biggest recruit for himself. Clyde Lovellette lived in Terre Haute, Indiana, and at 6 feet 9 inches tall, he was the best big man in the country. Allen had spent months trying to lure Lovellette to Kansas, but Clyde lived in the heart of Hoosier country, and he had already committed to the University of Indiana. Fogg was undeterred, and he made one last trip to Terre Haute to try to change his mind.
And I can remember sitting out on the porch, and this big Chrysler New Yorker drove up, and I knew who it was. And so I told Dad, I said, Dad, you just stay here. And when Fogg comes, just tell him that I'm not home and try to get rid of him. So he came in the house, and of course I wasn't in the house, I was in the backyard as far as way I could get from him. In the garage, I believe. Just trying to hide from him.
Fogg convinced Lovellette to get in the car and come to Kansas, just to take a look. During the trip, Lovellette fell in love with Lawrence and the university. Fogg had his first basketball giant. Freshmen weren't allowed to play on the varsity, but when Lovellette became a sophomore, he made an immediate impact. He led the conference in scoring the next 3 seasons. By 1952, Fogg's recruits had played together for 3 years. Lovellette was named an All-American, and the Jayhawks were one of the most talented teams in the country. Along with Lovellette, Kansas had Bob Kenny, Bill Hoagland, Bill Linhard, and Dean Kelly.
These 5, plus John Keller and Charlie Hogue, formed the regular lineup that carried most of the load all the way to the...
Well, those Kansas guys were unbelievably important. I guess like all successful teams, they realized that Clyde was the main man, but all the others played a very big part in the success of the team.
Another native Kansan on the team was junior guard Dean Smith. He didn't play much, but he had an eye for the game, and he sometimes talked strategy on the bench with assistant coach Dick Harp.
There was some game we were playing, and Dr. Allen said for us to weave, it's an exhibition game, to weave against the zone. And I said, Dick, I wanted to whisper, I was a player, hey, what does he mean, weave against the zone? He said, shut up, Smith, do what he tells you. And that shows his loyalty no matter what was said. I never said anything again.
The Jayhawks began the season with 13 straight wins.
Kansas comes back home January 5th to open the conference season as the nation's #1 team. The Jayhawks earned this rank in the Associated Press poll by sweeping aside Colorado, Kansas State, and Missouri to annex the Big 7 preseason tournament in Kansas City.
At midseason, Kansas lost back-to-back games at K-State and Oklahoma A&M. But Fogg got the team back on track. They went through the rest of the conference season undefeated and advanced to the NCAA tournament.
Here's the happy mob scene with the scoreboard indicating KU's 78-61 conquest. The Jayhawkers, in dark jerseys, open NCAA play in the Kansas City Regional against TCU's Southwest Conference champions.
Kansas held off Texas Christian in the first round of the tournament, then defeated fifth-ranked St. Louis behind Clyde Lavellet's record 44 points. The victory sent the Jayhawks to Seattle and the Final Four. In the semifinal, Kansas met the Santa Clara Broncos. It was over by halftime. Lavellette scored 33 points, leading Kansas to a 74-55 victory. The Jayhawks were just one win away from a national championship.
Probably was the most exciting moment that I've had in broadcasting, because it was the pre-television days, and the game started at 11 p.m. Central Time, and so some people even went to bed, set their alarm clocks, got up, turned on the radio, listened to the broadcast of the game, and it was a big thrill for me to be a part of that.
St. John's coach Frank McGuire knew his young team was no match for Kansas, but he thought they might have a chance if they could slow down Lavellette.
St. John's was led by a center named Bob Zawalik, a freshman who was considered one of the up-and-coming good big men in the country.
And he was sort of really getting to me, and he was annoying me as far as, he was pulling my pants and pulling hair on my legs. And I think that's what Coach McGuire wanted him to do, is to get me upset where that I would take a swing at him, or, give him a real good elbow or something that the referees would indicate it was a flagrant foul and take me out of the game.
And Clyde says, "But Doc," he said, "the guy keeps pulling my jersey and grabbing part of the meat." He said, "I'm getting so I can't stand him. I'm going to have to knock his block off." Dad says, "You are not going to knock anybody's block off until after the game. And I promise you, it's freedom. After that last game, you can do anything you want. You may get put in jail, and I'll get you out."
Lenhard gets his second goal from the top of the circle. And Lavellette cranks a hook off the post. Kansas again steals the ball, with Dean Kelly sailing all the way for a layup. He misses, but Kenny follows hard for the goal. Kansas is never in trouble the rest of the way and soars to an 80-63 title victory.
Lavellette was named the tournament's most valuable player. He led the nation in scoring and was named an All-American for the third consecutive year.
But Kansas finally had its championship, its NCAA championship, and it was a good thing for Phog Allen to win an NCAA championship. I think he would have been remembered as a great coach anyway, but to have an NCAA title to his credit, I think, really helps his standing in history.
The team arrived back in Lawrence the next night. Thousands turned out to greet their national champions.
It was an exciting moment. And especially coming back to Lawrence with a parade and Clyde Lavellette on the fire truck.
Would you mind if I drove the fire truck? Of course, everything was, you can do anything, Clyde, we just won the national championship, you can have the whole town if you want it. Coming downtown and driving that fire truck. Whew. And then there's thousands and thousands and thousands of kids, people. And Lawrence just blew up.
The party went on until early in the morning. At the end of the parade route, students had built a bonfire. They had collected piles of copies of Look magazine.
And they put them on this bonfire and burnt the Look magazine in effigy. Just like they hung somebody else out, but they burnt the Look magazine because that was the only team that I didn't make All-American on. And I thought that was kind of neat.
But the team had little time to celebrate. 5 days later, they flew to New York for the Olympic playoffs. 7 Jayhawks and Phog Allen were named to the United States team that won the gold medal at the Olympic Games in Helsinki, Finland. Allen had fulfilled a promise that he had made to them all 4 years earlier.